to the Power of One. Today, I am going to be speaking with Charles Walker. We're going to have that real conversation about some life decisions we've all made when we were younger and how it affected our lives. And then maybe we can get some clarification on what's going on with the young people today in our city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Welcome to the show, Charles Walker.
Good afternoon, Melanie. How you doing today?
And I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Charles, we have been connected and we have been working, and we both are boots on the ground. And you and I had a conversation, and you told me a little bit about yourself. And I was shocked. I thought that I just know Brother Charles, the Christian Charles, but you said I've done some stuff back in the day that I'm not proud of. And I know one of the original members of the JBM, and I wanted to be associated with that group because it looks good back then. So, Charles, we're just going to dive right into the conversation because, see, you and I know, again, because we work in Philly and we're boots on the ground, so many young people being shot, males and females, children. And it wasn't like that when we were coming up. So let's have that conversation. We're going to go back to the 80s.
Yes.
When JBM first started. And we don't have to name no names, but you saw this and you said, I want to be associated with that. Let's start there. Why would you want to be associated with that? And how was your family life? Did you have that father figure, a praying mother, but the street still looks sexy to you?
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, that father figure. And that's what I was looking for. Coming up, it was just 7 of us, and I was 2 of 2 boys that was in the family. No father figure, just my mother. And I had 5 of the most beautiful sisters you ever wanted to see. And then every fella who was associated with anything to do with on the street would come over the house. And I was the guy who would go park their cars because they would come to see my sisters, and I would just pull off and drive their cars. I'm like, I can't wait to do what they do. But I didn't know the consequences of their actions of doing this. So my mother passed away when I was 13. Oh, wow. And she moved away, my 2 youngest siblings, and I was left behind with my 4 sisters, I'm sorry. And got introduced to, as I say, the game, because I didn't have anything tangible to live on. Like I said, my sister was young, from 15 to 18, trying to live in a household that my mom had left us. So my only way of making money, fast money, was to get involved with the streets. So I got connected in with the guys, and they really didn't want me involved because I was a good student, good athlete. I was in school doing all the right things, but it's something about that street life that really intrigued me of getting involved. I came across some people that I met, and you know how you say, I'm going to do this because I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get my degree, make sure my family was okay. But it never goes that way when you're out there on the street, because back then, respectful hustlers during that time, we honored the guideline of once you made it home, it was safe. We made sure that the elderly got across the street, got home. And we gave back, per se. Like we would organize basketball games, pay people rent, to make sure they had a living, because we know we was doing wrong. We was all from the one particular community, and where you could go to different area codes or zip codes. I'd say, like now, kids can't cross over from West Philly to North Philly. But back then, you was able to, because if you had it, I had it. And we would share it amongst one another. Like, now there's no honor among thieves. These young people now is getting involved in the street life. And it's not about money. It's not about property gain. It's about prestige for these guys. Whatever they do on the internet, social media, you was with this person last night, so I'm gonna get you today. There's no honor among these young people.
So now you sold drugs being of the street life because you had to.
But not really had to, you know, to survive and wanted to do for your family, yes. My oldest sister, she wanted to send me to the military, but I was doing something that I was good at, if that makes any sense. I was making
But that
money.
made sense to you.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes,
At that
yes.
time.
At that time, but my whole means was I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get my degree, I'm gonna buy these buildings, but it didn't turn out that way because I didn't know it was more to than just the prestige part about it. You had people who was getting jealous of what you're doing, people who was older than myself, and I was 19 when I bought my first vehicle. Coming out of high school, I had my first apartment, and I was worth about maybe at the age of 17 about $200,000. And in '85, that was a whole lot of money, and really didn't know what to do with it. Didn't know what to do with it. So we partied, we did everything you could imagine kids doing, but I was destroying my neighborhood.
So let's speak about that for a minute. At any point, did you actually think, like, I'm selling drugs to my brother, I'm selling drugs to my sister? Did that ever dawn on you?
It didn't dawn on me until crack cocaine came on the scene. Once that crack cocaine came on the scene, then I realized that I was doing wrong to people by giving this poison to them. But by that time, it was too late because it was coming so fast, coming so fast. Then I always thought that in my crazy mind that I'm not going to give it to this lady if she give me some food stamps. I'm going to make sure she feeds her family. I'm not going to accept that from her, but I would still give it to her, but don't take the stuff that she had to feed the kids. That's how I tried to justify my crazy mind, the wrong that I was doing. Then I remember coming up, it was this older gentleman named Mr. Jake that used to always take us out to ball games when I was a kid. And I came across him and he said, "You're destroying my neighborhood." I'm like, oh my God. And I got in trouble with Central Youth Study Center around that time. And I met this fella, Malcolm Amos, and he gave me a job. So I goes back to Mr. Jake and I say, "I got a job." He said, "Come see me in 5 to 10 years after you held that job and doing something good for your community that you destroyed." And that hurt me. Oh man, that hurt me so bad. It hurt me. So I started working at Slayton, then to the net, then I started working at PAAN, right in the community that I grew up in. And they made me a senior supervisor during that time. And I tell you, I ran back to my community, knocked on Mr. Jake's door, and his wife answered and said, "Kevin, how you doing?" That's what they called me, Kevin. And I was like, "Hey, Mr. Jake home?" He said, "He just passed away yesterday." And he could never see the young man that I was going to be. And that made me want to do better because this is the only man that took a liking to not only me, all the kids in the community, and he couldn't see me do well. So once I got established at PAAN, becoming a director of programs, I went back to the community and I started asking my executive director, can he hire some of these guys who was out there doing drugs in the community and give them a job? And lo and behold, I think right now we hired about maybe 15 of them young men come home from incarceration. They did over 15 to 20 years. They're trying to do something back to the community. And we also just hired a young man who's supposed to be on the show today. We hired him also.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now, so you were young when you got out of the game.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I went home. I was married at the time, and I said, "I'm done." So my wife said, "Yes, you're done." So she said, "Well, you don't need this stuff here then." So she started taking all the stuff that I had, like far as the cars, the coats, all that stuff was taken away from me. And she said, "You said you're done." And she put me in the Mercury Topaz from driving a 420 SEL to a Mercury Topaz, as she say, humble you. And
Mm-hmm.
I drove that car for about 10 years.
Mm.
Um, I think I had 287,000 miles before she let me buy new ones. It was leaning to the side, and I would pull up to clubs with my gator boots on, my fur coat on, but I had to have that Topaz. She actually would not let me drive her car, but she put the Volvo at the time. The new
Right.
Volvo was out, but that's how she humbled me,
Oh.
and it's amazing how when you ride up and these young guys know that you're not doing what you did before, and the difference of respect they give you. You always had that respect, like, oh, here come Charlie, man, he's a man.
Mhm.
To going down to, oh, here come Charlie, just a working man now.
Right.
And I've
Right.
seen
Right.
that transition,
Mm.
and that humbled me. That really humbled me. But
Two
it's
questions. Were you with your wife when you were still in the game?
yes, 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 man. We started dating in 75, 1975,
So she knew
1975.
what you
She
were what you were
she
doing.
knew, but she wasn't a part of it. She would not go out. She would not affiliate herself with anything that we did. Uh, it was like she was the as not a secret, but a secret when everybody sees together. Oh man, oh, I didn't know you was dating her. Stuff like
Mm.
that. Because she comes from a two-parent home. Uh, Mom was really, really into the church, her and the father, and I was the kid that they would say was no good for her. So, as I said, in '75, called myself dating, came back in the early '80s, but we had got separated due to her parents wouldn't let her see me. And then in '86, I like to say, '86, we got reacquainted. We was at a Luther Vandross concert, and we
Mm.
ran across each other, and we was inseparable since that day. And the
Okay.
first thing she said was, "Well, I heard some bad things about you. When you get finished, just give me a call." I'm like,
Mm.
"Oh," so yes. And I
Now,
like that
being
lost
in
it
the
for.
game and like young people today, and I'm sure you know this, they don't
Mm,
expect to live long. First of all, I'm afraid of dying. Period.
yeah,
Point blank. Okay. When you were in the game, you know what the possible outcome could be: death,
yeah.
prison. Did you
Mhm.
think about that and did that bother you?
Um, it didn't bother me per se, and two, I found someone I fell in love with. As I got older, but during the time I was doing it, no, it didn't. It was either you're going to do two things: go to jail, or die, and we was ready for that. But at the same
Wow.
time, I don't think I never really carried a gun.
Mm.
Always had one, but now everybody carry a gun. I never had to carry a gun because I had people who, like the fella that's not on the phone right now, that protected me. And like I said, this really wasn't for you, but if you want to do it, let me show you how to do it.
Mm.
So they sheltered me per se, from
Mm.
all the violence of it. But it never, even though they sheltered me, that they couldn't shelter the guys around me. You know, I got married in '89. Still was part of it, but winging myself out. And I never
Mm.
forget one of my um, four brothers who all went to Cheney together. We all went out there, and this is what we want to do. We want to make sure that we make a living for ourselves. We're gonna get out the game. So coming back from a honeymoon, they tell me the story of he was outside on the basketball court, uh, did some business transaction, someone shot and killed him.
Mm.
And to this day, I still think about that young fella. You know, and the crazy thing about it, Melanie, even though being a part of that right there, I still didn't put it down. And I knew the consequences. I knew why they came and got this guy. I knew everything. And the first thing I thought, well, we got to get right back out there. But first, when they shot him, he had old money out. And after they shot him, they come to us and say, now it's your day. That's when they got real. Like, oh, how are we going to pay something that you gave him? He's part of your group, so now you pay for it. You know, so, and that's what made me really, really get out of it, you know, along
now,
with
were you in a gang?
no, you know, during that time, we, we called ourselves Four Young Guys just from Northfield. We didn't have no name, you know, we didn't have a name, you know, we didn't get associated with a name, you know, because we, like I said, we all went to school, we knew the RICO law. So you give yourself a name now, you know, you're in trouble. So no, we didn't give ourselves a name, you know.
Okay. What message would you have for that young man or even that young lady who is making the decision to be about that life, who is making the decision that in order to solve this problem of a verbal dispute, because that happens now when there's verbal disputes, they just kill people. What message do you have for these young people today?
You know, the message that I have for them, you know, even when I meet them on the street now, you just can't walk up to them and say, hey man, you gotta stop doing what you're doing. If you don't have anything to give them, you know, that's measurable to what they're doing, and there's nothing that we could do now that is, if they're making some good money, to go there and say, hey man, I want you to stop selling them drugs because you're killing your community. You know what I mean? You have to give them something in order for them to want something else. But my message would be now there are no friends out there, you know, and you're only good as your last favor when you're doing this stuff. So once you commit to doing something and somebody see you better than them, people are jealous now. We are envious of each other. We don't respect one another, you know. I would just tell these guys that don't do what I did. Um, Try to find something that you love to do in your lifetime, or to make your family proud of you, you know, or just walk around and tell these young people you love them, because they don't hear that. They do not hear that at all. And they don't know the power of a man walking up to them and say, hey man, I love you, man, and then really mean it. You know, they always say that we always come, but we don't come bearing gifts per se. It could be that little strange thing of just giving somebody a trans pass, or getting that phone call after 11 o'clock and you actually pick your phone up and talking to a stranger to talk them guys down from being on that particular corner, or going back there and retaliate after a young person that got killed. It's just your actions when you go up on these young people. When they see you doing right, they'll try to do right. You know, you got to lead by example now, you know. But our society now is all geared on these weapons, these guns that they're having. You could get a gun fast and you go out there and buy a car now. You know, and it's so scary that during the pandemic, you know, I think we was the only organization that was riding around during that time. For like about 6 months, we was about the only organization that really was on the street. And during that 6 months into the pandemic, you notice everybody
was on the street. Back up. Let's take that again. You know, I was going to people's houses. Don't be throwing no shade. Now you know Northwest was out there. But go ahead, finish your statement.
No, you know, I'm not throwing no shade, not towards you. You know better than that. You know that. You know. But during that time, you know, when it first happened, you know, it's like you only seen, like, it was four of us, you know, and my executive director was one of them, Mike Harris, myself, and this guy named Iron. And it seemed like we was the only four people on the streets during that time, you know. And you ride past Allegheny Avenue, they had the whole line of everybody getting a gun. Everybody, you know. And then you go past there now, there's still COVID did a number, you know, giving their money out. And everyone was buying cars and guns, cars and guns, cars and guns. And young now, look at 12 to 18, you know. And them guys is so that they are scared, but they ready to die, if that makes sense. It doesn't make
It
sense to me.
does. Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't make
horrible.
sense, but they scared, but they ready to die. If you
Yeah,
lock them up behind the walls, they so nervous. They're like the first person they call is their mother. Call my mom, call my mom. But once
yeah.
they're on the street, they're just willing to pull that particular gun out on anybody that approaches. During our job, I think we had 3 people that were shot while they was out there doing the work.
Mm,
They're trying to be a credible messenger, trying to get these young guys off the street. They walk into gunfire, and that's
yeah.
stuff that you don't hear all these other agencies doing out there for these particular young men. Not only PAAN, you have other agencies like IDA, NOMO. You had the guys who
Mhm.
doing the good work that's not really getting the good credit that's
Right.
deserved because they're out there every day and they are making a difference. They are getting some of these people up off the streets, but we are not allowed to say PAAN IDA pulled them young people off the street, or we got this guy off the street because then it mess up our credibility. We are credible
Mm,
messengers.
right.
So
Right.
we have
And
done
I
that.
will admit that PAN and their boots on the ground is a little different than Northwest boots on the ground. I'm calling that mother or whatever co-homicide survivor or victim, and I'm going to their house. But PAN, yes, boots on the ground, like after 10 p.m. and they're on the ground into the wee hours of the morning. That PAN is doing, and I commend you
Yeah.
for what you do and giving back to your community and helping those young people, which is important. And it is important that you don't have to necessarily try to bring in 30 at a time, but if you're able to help one, you know what I mean, to get one off the street, and then maybe that one can turn into 2 and then 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're
Yeah.
living in scary times in
We
the
are.
city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, because they just launched a fairly new program called GVI, Gun Violence Intervention Program,
Yes.
also. And this
Mhm.
program is taking this part of the program, anti-violence program, really taking the city by storm. Because they
Good.
goes out on a Saturday and they do their home visits on Saturday, but then they work with groups, not gangs. And these group of young men is actually picked by the police captain in a particular district. And they go past these young men's house with credible messenger, the DA's department, a mother or father who lost a loved one,
Mhm.
and the police department. So like 7 people that goes out and visit these young people, and this is their, I like to say, last chance before they redeem themselves. So they give them a chance to redeem themselves. Say, okay, we got these programs, these jobs for you. So if you don't take it, now we're going to the law going to come after you. So they give them a different alternative. The program and it's actually working. Whereas I think now they start off with 2 people down there. Now they have about 12 or 13. They're still hiring, and it's part of one big coalition group. A new organization come along. And they're really doing good. They have a young man named Deion Sanders who runs that particular program.
That's awesome. Well, Charles, I thank you so much for sharing your story with me today. Keep doing good and keep making a positive change in the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you, Melody. Nice talking to you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. This is a very serious conversation. We're losing our young kings and we're losing our young queens. Your life is valuable. Understand that when a life is taken, it affects your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your sister, your brother. It affects your whole family and it affects the whole community. You are important and you should want to live past your teen years. Your life is important. Peace and love.